No Japanese info by Japanese people. Then call me! Hey there, it's Naoto. Today I'd like to focus on the dark side of Japanese history, which we shall definitely not forget. Buddha statues were broken up. Temples were burned out. Sounds cruel. Well, some of you might know Meiji Restoration, which drastically reformed the way of Japanese life, and Japan was lashed into the abrupt westernization. Usually, Meiji Restoration is evaluated as positive, on the ground that Japan could catch up the Western countries so swiftly. However, we shall not forget what we did in order to transform our way of living in the course of pushing the westernization forward. One of the radical things is to abolish Buddhism. Basically, that was in order to empower Shintoism. An essential purpose of Meiji Restoration was to establish or re-establish our nation. Then it was necessary to designate Shintoism as our national religion because Buddhism basically came from overseas. Today's episode is about Haibutsukishaku, which was a brutal movement to exclude Buddhism from Japan. First of all, I'd like to show you what Haibutsukishaku is all about, but beforehand, I'd like to point out that Japan is a country which has two religious mentalities at the same time, Shintoism and Buddhism. This mixed circumstance of religion was much more complicated before Meiji period. Shrines belong to Shintoism, whereas temples belong to Buddhism. However, there were many cases such as a temple inside a shrine inside a temple. Some shrines had enshrined Buddha statues to worship, even though Buddha came from Buddhism, obviously. So it strikes me that there was no clear distinction among people. At least they didn't care about the difference so much. But in the course of Meiji Restoration, the movement of Haibutsukishaku popped out. In 1868, Meiji government established several laws which ordered to separate Buddhism and Shintoism. Initially, that was just about the separation of those two mixed religions. Nevertheless, some people misunderstood the statement and stretched the meaning of the law. They said Buddhism came from overseas. We should purify our religious circumstance by supporting Shintoism. Buddhism should be excluded completely, and there should be nothing of Buddhism. This resulted in Haibutsukishaku. The outcome was terrible. The number of temples before Meiji period was 90,000. This number was at least halved. Today there are around 77,000 temples in Japan, but many of them were reconstructed. You can feel how terrible it was. Temples were broken up, and it was the same with Buddha statues. If you visit some areas such as Kagoshima, where Haibutsukishaku movement was especially extreme, you sometimes see Buddha statues without its head. Like that, this movement was really radical, and I do think Haibutsukishaku was a disgrace of Japanese history. There are several reasons why people join in ruling out Buddhism. Today, I pick up three of them. Firstly, to follow the intention of the government or the man of power. As I said, Meiji government didn't declare anything to break up Buddha statues. That's why Haibutsukishaku movement was shocking and unintended for the government. In fact, in response to extreme disturbance, Meiji government issued another statement for admonishing. In any case, Meiji government was not in favor of devastating cultural heritages of Buddhism, but that was just about Meiji government. That was, so to say, the national government. There were some local men of power who were eager to rule out Buddhism. So they took initiative to exclude Buddhism, as well as to break up many stuff. Secondly, to collect metals. In temples, there are many things made from metals, such as temple's bell, Buddha statues, and beyond. Meiji period was a time where the government was struggling to proceed with military expansion. There were huge demand for metals to produce guns, cannons, or equivalent. So the metals collected from temples were sometimes used for weapons. And thirdly, because of the idleness of some Buddhist monks. In Edo period, just before Meiji period, Buddhism had huge power in Japan. One of the main roles of Buddhism at that time was to conduct funeral ceremonies. Buddhist monks could gain money by funerals, and that made them idle sometimes. That means some were reluctant to practice the training of Buddhism. So some monks stayed away from specific training, and what they did was funerals every time. That was regarded as negative by some governors. In the end, I'd like to answer one frequently asked question. Was there no rebellion by Buddhists? The answer is Yes, but not every time. Indeed, some monks protested against Haibutsukishaku. However, most of the Buddhist monks converted to Shintoism without any specific protest. That's because of our mixed religious perspective. It seems that they didn't care about serving God in Shintoism instead of serving Hotokes in Buddhism, because Hotoke in Buddhism and God in Shintoism were considered to be essentially the same. On the other hand, let's take Kofukuji in Nara, for instance. Just in Kofukuji, more than 2,000 Buddha statues were destroyed. And actually there is a tower inside the temple, which is designated as our national treasure today. But this tower was sold, and the buyer tried to burn out the tower so he can collect metals. However, the neighbors protested against it, and the tower was saved. Oh, thank goodness! But the point was, indeed, there was protest, but that was not based on religious perspective. The neighbors were merely afraid of fire. So, that's all for today. In any case, Haibutsukishaku was such a brutal movement. Thanks to some people who tried to save our culture, Buddhism is not completely eradicated today. We Japanese people should appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. ありがとうございました。